Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Hey, welcome back to Assassin's Creed 1 Sequence Memory Block 6. I don't know why I keep saying sequence and memory blocks in this game, but fine, whatever.
Yeah, and I'm back as well. So after quite a long time, we're back doing this dual commentary again, and we're nearing the end of the game. So this is the sequence involving Robel Desab, and it's really one of the first sequences in the game that I can actually enjoy replaying because I like fighting Robel Desab and all the guards previously when we get to our Souf. Yeah,
It's like a whole ass like fight sequence thing. Like it's kind of like a beat 'em up game or like whatever those things are called.
yeah, brawler type games. Yeah, I would say. But it's gonna be a while before we actually get to our Souf because we first have to go to Jerusalem in order
Yeah.
to find Maria, who is masquerading as Robel de Sab right now. And I think one of the main reasons why I like this sequence is because of the fact that it tricks you into believing you've killed Robel de Sab, and then you just go to our Souf, and like there's a constant combat the whole entire time.
Yeah, like when I first played this game, I noticed that there were two assassination memories when every other sequence just had one. I was like, what the fuck is that about? And then I got to the part where like you find Maria, and it was like, oh shit, this is going down.
Okay, well that seems like kind of a spoiler, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't know that like it was gonna be like a trap. Like I didn't know like what was happening, but I just noticed that there was two assassination memories, and I was so confused.
Well, at least it's not as spoilerish as in Assassin's Creed Valhalla when you found out that the builder was a
Yeah,
what's the term that they call those blue creatures?
Jotun people, frost
Jotun.
giants.
Yeah, okay, yeah, frost giants. Yeah, that is definitely not as spoilerish as that. Not that it really
Yeah.
mattered though, because that whole
I think they
sub
actually
story.
changed that later in an update because people kept like I wasn't the only one who did that. People kept spoiling themselves on that thing, and they actually had to change it in an update.
Yeah, well, but whatever. That whole sub story of Assassin's Creed Valhalla doesn't serve any purpose. It's just pretty
I
lame.
mean, pretty much the whole game doesn't serve a purpose.
I mean, you get to meet Desmond. That's important.
Yeah, but like the rest of the stuff that you have to do to get there doesn't serve a purpose.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just nonsensical padding. It's just the trait of Ubisoft at this point where they're just
Like
milking content.
most of the stuff you do in Valhalla is literally side content that's pushed as main content.
And that is a massive disgrace. And that's
Yeah.
one of my main problems with open world games. And I mean, I've been doing a Batman Arkham series walkthrough where I'm playing Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, and Batman Arkham Knight, and doing no damage videos on their hardest difficulties. But I briefly touched upon this whole idea of open world games and just kind of the main problems I have with them. And like the older Assassin's Creed games represent an exception where I can actually appreciate the open world format, but I never like open world games. I feel like there's a lot of nonsensical padding. There's a lot of side missions that you have to do. And typically with an open world game, they're based around the RPG format where you're forced to level up your character to just in artificial degree that doesn't really make any sense. And also, I just feel like the way storytelling is handled in open world games is never really focused or never really like keeping you into like the story. There's just a lot of side missions in the game that it kind of takes your focus away from the main story and it leads to a bit of confusion. And I don't feel like developers contribute enough time to the main story to really flesh it out. But of course, in the likes of Assassin's Creed Revelations, this is a different case. I feel like they achieved the right balance between the main story and the side missions so that there's no confusion with where you are in the main story, and the moments that feel impactful in the main story actually come across as impactful because there's no sort of padding with the side missions getting in your way you
Yeah,
know
and like Brotherhood and Revelations like tie the side missions into the main story and like have them actually like not affect the main story, but like are affected by the main story and like reference what happens in the main story.
Yeah, and that was another thing as well that I touched upon in my walkthroughs. But, like, for instance, when you go to Batman Arkham City or Batman Arkham Knight, a lot of the side missions that you do in those games feel very disconnected to the main story, and they feel like isolated incidents, and you kind of have to waste time doing all the padding in order to actually get to the end point of those side missions. and like it doesn't really help understand the story a lot more. And like the Catwoman DLC especially was very disappointing in Batman Arkham City, and even more disappointing in Batman Arkham Knight, given how fundamentally broken that DLC is with Catwoman. But there's no point in having the Catwoman DLC in Batman Arkham City, because all it is just a completely isolated incident involving Catwoman just recovering her things, and it contributes nothing to the main story. It's like, why put it in there? It's like not only is this a very like story inferior piece of content, but then you have gameplay inferior content because Catwoman plays like shit compared to Batman. She's so limited in her combat and predator abilities that it's just a consequence of the open world format. And like, again, Assassin's Creed doesn't have this problem until we get to I think I would say Assassin's Creed Unity is really where the side mission, or actually Rogue. I would say Rogue is really where they lost a lot of focus with the main story, I would say.
Yeah, because Rogue is just like Assassin's Creed, but you're a Templar and everyone is like their fucking roles are reversed.
Yeah, and it's very hard for an open world game to really create a side mission content that doesn't interfere with the open world. And I guess an argument could be made that AC4 likely contributes to this, given how much you're you're pillaging ships and taking down fortresses and the like. But I still feel like you're doing that not because you're forced
You're
to.
doing that more because you're a pirate than an assassin.
Yeah, and also it's fun to do, and
Yeah.
I just think there's still a way to feel like you're still connected to the story because of how much the writing and direction really draws you into the story of AC4. And ironically, I didn't really feel that at all when I first played AC4. Like, I felt kind of disconnected from the Assassin's Creed experience without fully understanding the nuances and subtleties involved with AC4 storytelling, which is something that Laser Z properly described in his review of the Assassin's Creed games when he was describing which Assassin's Creed game is the best. And so I have a greater appreciation of AC4 right now. And compared
Yeah,
to and compared to the most recent entries, AC4 is more of an Assassin's Creed game for sure.
yeah, like honestly, it's even more of an Assassin's Creed game than Origins. And like Origins, at least still tried to be Assassin's Creed.
I didn't really feel it that much with Assassin's Creed Origins. It didn't feel like an Assassin's Creed game for the most part, even
Well,
with
it's
like
at least
hidden
more
ones.
Assassin's Creed than Odyssey and Valhalla.
Really, I would say Valhalla is more Assassin's Creed than Origins and
Valhalla
Odyssey.
is just like angry Viking man.
Yeah, but I feel like the way they touched upon the hidden ones, like the times with Basim and with Hytham, even if Hytham's not used so much, and
Yeah, but
Basim.
like Eivor does a complete 180. Like you kill Odin or whatever, and he acts like he's gonna join the assassins.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you
that
go
that I
talk to Hytham,
understand.
and then he completely fucking does a 180. He's like Viking is better for me.
Yeah, that I understand. That is a big fault with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I still feel like there is still a lot to that intrigued me in like the mid story when we're looking at the assassins and their ideologies and the documents we go to and the fortresses that we go to, or like the assassin dens I should be saying. I feel like there is a lot more of an assassin focus than there was in AC Origins. I just feel like there was a lot of padding with AC Origins, even if like stuff like the Leap of Faith was a great introduction to that, even though they completely ruined it in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. But I still feel like I was more connected to the assassin storyline in Valhalla more so than in
But
Origins.
like all the assassin stuff in Valhalla is literally just like hidden pieces of paper that you have to go find and read instead of like stuff that's like actually in your face in the main story, like it
And
should
there's also
be.
stuff with Basim, but like those small moments that I was with Basim, I really felt like I was connected to the assassin storyline more so than the entirety of AC Origins,
Yeah,
which I
but
ne-
he was only in like 2 or 3 main like arcs.
Yeah, but
Everything else was
there's a
just
skill involved
casual.
with that. There's a skill involved with the brevity in that. Like, even if you don't see Basim that much, if these encounters actually have a lot of impact behind them, you don't notice that you don't see Basim that much. Like, this is something that really they lost in the later AC games. Like, the older Assassin's Creed games, they follow that same kind of format where they're shorter games, but there's a lot more like impact and soul put into the storylines and the characters. That's kind of the what I'm trying to touch upon right there, Bacall, basically. Like, the small moments I was with Basim, like before that ultimate reveal that he's actually Loki, which kind of destroyed his character entirely. I was actually appreciating those moments. There was definitely a level of heart put into there. But I do understand your point, but I feel like if you notice that you don't spend a lot of time with Basim, I feel like you kind of miss out on the kind of like interactions you had with them. Like that, I know you feel differently about that, but that's just my opinion on that.
I guess I'm just angry that there's like literally no more assassins in a game called Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and it's a main
It's
disappointment.
just fucking stupid.
But that's just unfortunately the business model of games nowadays, and Ubisoft just favors the business model with their games rather than actually the gaming model. And this actually leads on to a tangent I want to discuss, which is Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And we all know that Activision Blizzard hasn't had the best history as of recent years because they're turning their games into more so like business models where they're favoring microtransactions and the like and all these other like pay to win designs and loot boxes, and it's just a trend with a lot of their games. Even Call of Duty's been doing that. But Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard might represent a big change in that, because we all know that Microsoft is really like the wealthiest company out there. I mean, just look at the stock market, for instance. Like you look at their stocks and you look at the prices on their stocks, and they have a pretty like high value on their stocks. So I imagine like Microsoft actually acquiring Activision Blizzard might represent very big changes, and it's not just like they own certain brands; they own the entirety of Activision Blizzard. So they're the ones that are actually developing the games that Activision would have been doing. But of course, on the other side, they might also favor the business model, because we know that Microsoft owns Xbox, so they might make a lot of those games exclusive to Xbox and never release them on PlayStation, which might benefit the business model, because a lot of Microsoft fans and Activision fans are there. But you'll lose out on a huge audience in the process. But like it's an interesting discussion to have, and it does relate greatly to this whole idea that Ubisoft is just now favoring the business model with Assassin's Creed rather than the fleshed out gameplay experience.
Like they're just making games for money at this point. And
Eh,
like it's also dumb that fucking Activision was doing the Ubisoft shit and abusing their employees. Like they literally had a walkout when it all started, and it's still happening as far as I know.
Yeah, and I doubt it's going to get resolved anytime soon, because these long-term issues, are always ingrained within the inner framework of the company. And just because Microsoft has acquired Activision doesn't mean it's going to be resolved so quickly. It's a long process, and for all we know, Microsoft is equally as incorrigible as Activision
Yeah.
Blizzard with that kind of
There's
stuff.
literally a trend on Twitter that's been going around for like a few months that's like hashtag end abuse in gaming or something. It's like, bro, it's so sad that that hashtag has to like even exist in the first place.
Yeah, because it shows how big this whole issue is within the gaming community and the gaming
Like
developers.
like it's not even just Ubisoft and like Activision Blizzard that abuse their employees. They're just like the main ones we know about, like
Yeah,
as
but
the main public.
yeah, and it's pretty bad just thinking about it like that. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Like, do you feel like you play a lot of games from Activision Blizzard that might be impacted detrimentally, or maybe like be positive from that, like whole
I literally
acquisition?
played nothing from Activision or Microsoft. I just play Xenoblade.
Yeah, and I personally don't feel anything for Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, because, honestly, guys, Activision Blizzard just the only games they ever favor are the trendy games, like almost as trendy as Call of Duty or Fortnite.
Yeah.
Never any uniquely crafted gameplay experiences like with Resident Evil or Last of Us or the
And
like.
like even before they got bought by Microsoft, I literally never played anything that they made, and I'm still not gonna play them now.
Yeah, and I'm not going to indulge in that fantasy anymore, because I used to like Call of Duty, but I've grown away from that, because I've really come to understand just how trendy Call of Duty is and how boring each of the games
The
are.
only Call of Duty game I've played is Black Ops 2, and I played the campaign for like 5 minutes, and I played like 10 minutes of zombies, and that was it.
Yeah, and Black Ops 2, I played a lot of the zombies. I played nothing but zombies pretty much, but like I played COD 2019, which is like Modern Warfare 2019. I played the first three missions and just turned it off. It was so boring. But at least
Didn't you
Black.
do a walkthrough of a Call of Duty game like a few months ago, like recently?
I've done a full walkthrough of COD World War II, which was owned by Sledgehammer Games, and I'm still working on a walkthrough of Advanced Warfare, which is also made by Sledgehammer Games. But I haven't had the urge to go back to it because this one mission I'm on with COD Advanced Warfare is so lengthy that I hate having to restart the whole entire mission just to get a clean run because it's just padding and tedious gameplay when I could be doing other things. And that's why I'm doing the Batman Arkham series because I always had the urge to do the Batman Arkham games. But I mean, originally at the time I didn't have the urge because when you go to a channel like Batman Arkham Videos where they deliver quality gameplay, even if most likely they're using tools on PC to make the gameplay look good, I didn't want to put myself in that position where I just feel kind of inferior to Batman Arkham Videos, but then I realized my commentary is what separates me from these other YouTube channels, and that's just kind of the main thing you gotta realize as a YouTuber. You might not deliver the best gameplay compared to other people, but it's your commentary that allows you to stand out from a lot of these other YouTube channels.
Like that's probably why people don't really watch like a lot of no commentary videos, because people want like the experience of like hearing someone and like actually connecting to a voice.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I noticed in this video that you're beating up this guy, but you're not using the throw ability.
Yeah, because I forgot after you told me.
Oh,
Well, I
okay.
think because like I think I recorded all of this within like 2 days or something, and then we recorded the commentary for the last video after I recorded this.
Ah, okay. And I also noticed the same thing in your 100% AC1 run that you're doing
Yeah.
on your channel. I don't think you're using the throw move against these guys.
Yeah. Well, I think I used it in the video I uploaded yesterday.
Yeah, I think you did. I mean, I didn't watch I haven't watched the full second part of your run yet. I've only watched
Yeah.
like the first half of it. But yeah, it's good that you're doing it, and maybe I should do a walkthrough of AC1 if I ever decide to get an Elgato. Okay, guys, we had some problems with Elgato, but
Yeah.
we're back here again.
For some reason, it was recording on my computer instead of my hard drive. For some reason, I don't understand why it always does that.
Yeah, this was kind of our first time using Elgato as a way to record our voices, so we didn't expect
Yeah.
this possibility. But
I've used Elgato before to record my own stuff, but like not with commentary. And I always remember to change my settings then, and then just forgot now.
yeah,
And I don't understand why it always resets.
yeah, but like luckily for us, I made sure to save the previous audio recording with the Share Factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the one great backup we have right now. But I forget what we were talking about. I think we were talking about Activision Blizzard and Microsoft. But I don't feel much of an impact from Activision Blizzard being acquired by Oh, I'm sorry. I need to mute my mic. Why don't you continue the commentary, Pcol?
Yeah. We're just like saying like we don't really feel like it's gonna matter too much to us because we don't really play Activision or Microsoft games because like even though ID just got like his sister's Xbox recently, he doesn't really play a lot of Xbox games and he doesn't really like record off of it right now. And I don't even own an Xbox at all, so like Xbox doesn't matter to me. So there's no reason for any of us to like really care. And like right now we're I think we're just doing investigations. I think we finished up the investigations and now we're going to the assassination.
Yeah. I think that's what we're doing right now, and I'm amazed it went by so quickly with these investigations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't my 100% run, so I'm doing the bare minimum that the game requires you to do.
Yeah.
And I'm always doing the fastest ones.
For sure, because these investigations do take a bit of time.
Yeah.
But we don't really have much to say with regards to Assassin's Creed or Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
But there is some stuff related to Marvel. But apparently the new show's been announced, Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not expecting that with Moon Knight, and I know the main character of Moon Knight is a very familiar actor. I know I've seen him somewhere. I don't remember where, but I'm not too familiar with the character of Moon Knight. The only reason I know who Moon Knight is because he's a side character in Spider-Man: Web of Shadows. and he's a part of the good story when you choose to make good choices. So he's a side character you access through making good choices in Spider-Man Web of Shadows, which is the only choices I do anyway. But apparently with Moon Knight, he has hallucinations and he doesn't sleep very well. But I guess that's manifesting as some sort of demon or whatever.
I think it's dissociative identity disorder because that's what it is in the comics.
Oh, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. And then again, like, how does the costume manifest? Because it seems to manifest out of the blue.
Because like, from what I know of Moon Knight, like he's like this like mercenary guy who like goes to like some like Egyptian temple and like gets possessed by like the Egyptian deity of the moon called Khonshu or whatever, and then like it like develops into like these different personalities, and then like he becomes like this like vigilante that like gets powered by the phases of the moon.
He sounds like Ghost Rider in the sense that Ghost Rider's fueled by the spirit of vengeance.
I think he was like more designed to be like Marvel's Batman or something.
He doesn't seem like the Batman sort, I would say.
Well, like one of his personalities is like a rich guy who like lives in a tower, but then like at night he like becomes this vigilante that like goes out and fights crime. So it's kind of like Batman in that sense.
I guess, but I just remembered who the actor is. So the actor who plays this guy in Moon Knight is the same actor who plays Poe Dameron from Star Wars Episodes 7, 8, and 9. So that's why he was so familiar to me. But I was not expecting him to do it. I wonder how that's going to tie into the MCU. It's almost as much as Venom would tie into the MCU. I mean, he is part of the MCU since we know that. Or actually, no, he's not, because he's eradicated in Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Yeah, he got warped back.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Spider-Man: No Way Home, I saw on YouTube a poll made by WatchMojo, and they were asking people to vote which movie they felt was the most popular, and 58% of people said Spider-Man: No Way Home, and 29% of people said Avengers: Endgame. So it goes to show how popular Spider-Man: No Way Home is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can 100% agree. And I don't know if we talked a lot about Spider-Man: No Way Home in the previous video. I mean, I know we talked a bit about the things that it really did well, and I like the direction of the film. I like the way they implemented the three Spider-Men and the villains, and we did talk about the whole idea of the villains not exactly coming from the same universes as what we see in the actual movies that they come from. And like it's very similar to Uncharted 4's dialogue choices, where there's different dialogue choices, but the path is always the same. And those differences in the characters in Spider-Man: No Way Home kind of feel like that basically. But yeah, I really loved that film, and I mentioned in my Batman: Arkham Asylum walkthrough that that the Spider-Man: No Way Home is really the first MCU-related content that I've actually liked after Avengers: Endgame. Like, that actually has a lot more impact than just the TV series. I mean, the TV series are one thing, but an actual movie is very different.
Yeah. Like, No Way Home is, like, definitely the best, like, MCU thing that came out in 2021.
Yeah, and it's honestly,
just, like, okay or, like, really bad.
Yeah, I would say that. But it's probably my favorite piece of Spider-Man content. Like, just live action-wise. And, I hate the Sam Raimi trilogy. I don't know why people say the Sam Raimi trilogy is the best.
Because they're fucking blinded by nostalgia.
Yeah, like, when you go back to those films, there's the level of cringe involved with the cinematography and the quotes, and then just the way Spider-Man's character is portrayed. I mean, I talked about this with my dad, but my dad has actually read the Spider-Man comics, like the original Spider-Man comics, but apparently, Peter Parker in the original Spider-Man comics was not like how he is portrayed now in recent media. He was actually a lot more isolated, similar to how Tobey Maguire was in the original like Sam Raimi trilogy, and just his personality was apparently more in line with that of the original Spider-Man comics. But I guess that's why those original Spider-Man comics were the way they were, because like the first versions of characters in a comic are never ever going to be the best. Like, the original Batman comics. Well, in the original Batman comics, Batman actually used guns. He used the same pistol that was used to kill his parents. Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, that was actually a surprise when WatchMojo told me about that in their top 10 like Batman moments in comics. But yeah, that's not the best version of Batman for sure. Like it shows that he's just as bad as the criminals he kills, and it just goes to show that when he's making killing like a part of the norm, he's just going to use that as just the easy solution out of every single situation, rather than considering other possible like scenarios, other possible ways of handling a situation. And this was something that they really corrected in recent Batman entries. And I talked about this point a lot in my Batman Arkham Asylum walkthrough. But yeah, that's probably why a lot of people like the Tobey Maguire version, but I hate the Tobey Maguire version. If you ask me, Andrew Garfield is my favorite version. I like how he's actually like independent of like Tony Stark, for instance, or like any other rich corporation, and he's creating his own gadgets. He's actually I like that he has this very introverted personality. I guess that introverted personality is more like the original Spider-Man comics, but not in a way that's portrayed as being very cringe. And Gwen Stacy, especially, Gwen Stacy's a lot better than Mary Jane, that's for sure. Like, remember how much Mary Jane screamed in the original Sam Raimi trilogy, and it just got so old after a while?
Sam Raimi just loves screaming women.
Yeah, and I don't know why people say Spider-Man 2 is the best. I mean, there are some parts of Spider-Man 2 that I totally understand as receiving praise, but like Doc Ock as a villain, I didn't like. And like that whole scene. Like, did you watch Spider-Man 2, by the way?
No, I've literally only seen the MCU Spider-Mans.
Yeah,
I only know the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans and the Andrew Garfield ones from the memes.
from the memes, definitely. But one thing I never understood about Doc Ock, and I really don't like about the way Doc Ock was portrayed in Spider-Man 2, there's this whole scene where he's in the hospital, right? He's trying to get it, like, the doctors are trying to remove his arms. But then it creates this whole horror moment. Like, it's meant to be something out of a horror movie, basically, where he's like, it's like, because I know Sam Raimi used to develop old horror films, but then it leads on to a very, like, cliched, just cringeworthy villain at the bank scene when he's robbing the bank, and he's saying some very cheesy one-liners. Like, what was the whole point of that hospital massacre scene? You're trying to set up this very conflicted character, but then he's portrayed as being a very cliched villain in the bank scene, and then he's back to being like some villain we're supposed to show empathy with. Like, it's a flip-flopping of personality, and I think it's poorly handled in the Sam Raimi trilogy, and it's something they corrected in Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, the way, I'm so glad there was never any moment in Spider-Man No Way Home where Doc Ock reverted to being a villain. The moment Spider-Man cured him of his ailment, he was back to being the doctor that was well respected in Tobey Maguire's universe. And you could totally relate to him in that sense. And I guess that was, a problem that I kind of had with the way Doc Ock was portrayed in Spider-Man PS4, because if you already know he's going to be the villain, what was the whole point of all that empathy with him? But then again, like, it was a better build-up compared to how it was in Sam Raimi, because like, I totally understand that.
And I think they also kept him a secret in like all the marketing and stuff, so when you first see him in the game, you're just surprised that he's even there.
Yeah, basically. But I know, like, they kept Andrew Garfield a secret pretty well. I mean, a lot of fans were saying that, oh, is Andrew Garfield being there? And Andrew Garfield literally said no, but then he tricked us right there.
Yeah, he literally said like some things were photoshopped.
Yeah. It's crazy just how ambitious that film was, and how much they really provided a proper send-off to the villains in those original films. Like, they made the villains better in Spider-Man No Way Home. Even like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin was a lot better than how he was portrayed in Spider-Man 1, I would say. But I do see a bit of why William Dafoe's Green Goblin is kind of good in Spider-Man 1, but I just think at times he's a little meme-worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the Spider-Man 1 memes come from him, and like his suit is basically just a Power Ranger suit with like a weird-ass helmet.
Yeah, and he's almost as meme-worthy as Palpatine. Like, I remember there were a lot of memes from Palpatine when Mace Windu tried to kill him, and he was saying, like, unlimited power, and he's doing this weird, like, no, the voice is a like, that kind of voice. It's rather stupid.
Like, I just always remember, like, the scene where he's, like, talking to Spider-Man on the roof, and he just, like, randomly slaps him on the head for no reason. Like, what the fuck was that about?
Yeah, and another thing I really don't like about the Sam Raimi trilogy is how dark they can be at times, and then it's presented with like very like campy comical dialogue from Spider-Man and with like other cringeworthy dialogue, and it's like a little narrative dissonance. it's a really bad ludonarrative dissonance in the original Spider-Man movies with Sam Raimi, but I feel like there was no ludonarrative dissonance present with the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man or with the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Even if like Spider-Man: Homecoming and Spider-Man: Far From Home were kind of forgettable, if you ask me.
I feel like the big problem that people have with the Andrew Garfield movies is that like they set up Peter to they set it up that like he was always destined to be Spider-Man, and his his Peter Parker DNA was like the only DNA that could like be commune with the spiders or whatever. But that completely goes against the character of Spider-Man, where it could happen to anyone instead of just like being solely Peter Parker.
Uh, where is that indicated? I never implied that
Like
at all.
like well that's like in the Andrew Garfield movies. That's not in Sam Raimi.
Yeah, but I never noticed that in Andrew Garfield.
I I I mean I've seen like a lot of reviews of them, and like people keep saying that like, oh, they make it seem like only Peter Parker can be Spider-Man because like they make it so that like his dad's DNA was like used to like make the spiders, and like only his DNA could like activate the spider powers. So like if anyone else went bit by the spiders, they wouldn't become Spider-Man because it could only activate with the Parker DNA or some shit.
That was really a thing.
Apparently.
I don't remember that at all. And even if it was, I'm sure they would have provided some other way of rationalizing why other people would become Spider-Man. But you know, like I feel like the whole idea of anyone becoming Spider-Man, I never really found that to be at the forefront of thought when it came to Spider-Man. I mean, what always comes to the forefront of thought when I'm comparing Spider-Man to Batman is this idea of community. Because one thing that makes Batman inferior to Spider-Man in terms of being a superhero is that Batman is a very isolated individual and he lives among the richer class, so he never really sees the disenfranchised, and why there's a lot of crime in Gotham, and he's not really exploring a lot of the avenues where crime is coming from. And this is often a common trait you see when it comes to Batman and Spider-Man, but it feels like crime escalates under Batman and crime de-escalates under Spider-Man. But this could also be due to writer's bias. This is a term I made for myself. It's called writer's bias, but the reason why it might seem like crime skyrockets under Batman is not because of Batman's inefficiencies. It's more so that the writers of Batman are so attached to the darker universe of Batman that they're willing to pull some kind of Deus Ex Machina or like some kind of like out of the blue thought to just preserve that darker atmosphere. And that's why you just hear these moments where criminals just come out of the jail so quickly, and it's like, how are they breaking out of prison? Like, it just seems so inconvenient that this prison's so inefficient. But like, there's never really any build up towards that, you know?
Like, if people keep escaping the prison, why do you keep returning them to the same prison they're escaping from?
Yeah, and why are you not making improvements to the prisons and the like? It's
And like, why are you not offering like explanations for how they're escaping repeatedly?
Yeah, and I feel like they don't do that as much with Spider-Man. And even if there is, there's always some kind of explanation that kinda makes sense. But with Batman, it's like they're doing whatever they can to preserve the darker atmosphere, and so they're giving all these very convenient shortcuts for villains to just expose themselves.
Like in Spider-Man PS4, you can literally see like how the villains like escape the raft because there's a whole mission about it. And before you do that mission, when you go to Doc Ock's fucking lab, he literally has like things on the whiteboards that like are like detailing like escape routes and stuff for like how to deactivate the raft to let the villains escape.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense. And I feel like, and I'm so glad, like, they don't really hint towards a lot of these encounters happening recently before the events of Spider-Man PS4. It's not like, oh, he was fighting the same villains, like, 3 days ago or something. They've been in the raft for a while, and so it makes sense that this prison will be so efficient. And there's only like 8 villains that he's encountered, so it's not like New York is just bred in such a way that it's always going to create villains. But with Gotham City and in Batman, it's almost like the city is such a fictional city. It's too set in the fictional universe that it's somehow a city bred for making villains. And it's like, is there some kind of mystical force under Gotham City that's causing villains to be made? It's like, it's so odd in that regard,
Yeah,
Like,
there's like no sense for like why the villains in Batman like always escape.
yeah,
Like
or why
Spider-Man
like
makes sense.
Yeah, but I feel like in some ways they're doing that as a way to highlight the avenues where crime is manifested. Because like the disenfranchised, like the people who are constantly cheated by the school system or by their jobs or by PhD programs. And I personally find PhD programs to be a ripoff, if you ask me. Because then you see like all these people like Mr. Like, do you know Mr. Beast, for instance, like that big
Yeah.
YouTuber? Well, he doesn't. I don't think he has a PhD, but he's making a lot of money from his merchandise and the fact that he's a very like generous sort of individual and his creative challenges. But like,
I mean, I always just say that all college is a scam. Like, there's a Twitch streamer I watch about Point Grow, and he literally has like a chemistry degree, but all he does nowadays is just stream on Twitch, and he always makes jokes about like how he like has his chemistry degree just hanging up in his bathroom as like a placemat or something.
yeah, it just, when people come to that reality, and I feel like those kind of people that come to that reality are the kind of people that are disenfranchised, and they feel like they have to commit crime and they have to commit all these serious crimes to actually get a lot of that money, because unfortunately money makes the world go around. That's what they're kind of trying to portray in Batman, but they never make that a focus. It's always like an afterthought, and it's just that's why there's so much crime in Gotham. That's why the Batman just seems like a very one-dimensional superhero with how he's a vigilante, not so much a superhero, because he doesn't examine ways of actually improving community engagement, or at least making the people that feel disenfranchised feel like they're earning a living, like they give them a reason to actually indulge in society. But like Batman's views on society, they never go anywhere, and it's just that's the one-dimensional perspective I touch upon a lot when I'm talking about this point in my Batman Arkham
And like
Asylum videos.
from what I've seen in your Batman videos, there's like no way to like interact with the world unless it's like interacting with like, oh, like you're fighting these like villains or like these random thugs or like interacting with like collectibles. But like in Spider-Man PS4, you can literally like go down to street level and like interact with all the civilians and like give them high fives and stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think they did say that like in Batman Arkham Knight, for instance, they didn't put in civilians because like you have the ability to drive the Batmobile, and it would just seem odd that you would just be able to ram into civilians and the like. But and like it would just go against Batman's no kill code, and I totally understand that. And, it makes sense. Like they want more criminals on the streets, so they have to give a terrorist attack as a reason for that. But like I don't think Batman really works in that kind of setting where you have civilians in the city and the like. But again, that's purely the result of the fact that Batman's a dark character. But in some of the earlier versions of Batman, or like in Justice League, for instance, like in the animated Justice League series before the DC universe ultimately went out of control, and now the films and series that they make just aren't that good, if you ask me, and they feel like cringe and they feel kind of jokes in a sense. But in Justice League Animated and in Justice League Unlimited, Batman is portrayed in a very different light, and he even admits that superhero is like the bestest friend, and he actually taught them how to be heroes and the like. And it's Batman acknowledging that he's probably viewing his crime fighting as a very one-dimensional thing. And and then like they even had a whole like episode series in the original Justice League animated show called like a perfect world, and it's basically showing the Justice League, but they're actually the Justice Lords, and they're embracing the whole idea of killing and becoming a dictatorship. And it seems like their world is perfect when it actually isn't, and it's a result of using an easy way out to create this so-called perfect society. But at the same time, it feels like a very dead society. And I don't know if you guys have ever wondered what it's like to feel depressed, or you feel like you have your freedoms just lost, or you don't have any sense of creativity. But it's awful, and I felt that way at points in my life, and you feel dead, you feel depressed. And I felt this way in August of this year.
Never, like you just feel like you can never be happy or like have anything you want, or like nothing in your life goes right, and it just fucking sucks.
Yeah, and that further leads to more conflict, but it's just you never see that in the Justice Lords universe because of how much they put the hammer down, and they really prevent that from happening. And just because there's less crime happening, or like you don't see crime at all, does not mean it's a perfect world. It's basically like a dictatorship. Like that's basically what happens, basically, where you embrace this dictator model, and you don't have any sense of personal freedoms, and you don't bother examining society in a way that allows the world to bloom. And like this relates greatly to Assassin's Creed Revelations. Like, do you remember in the last sequence of the game where you storm the arsenal, criminal, and then you get into that talk with Ahmed, and then Suleiman comes in, and then he talks about like the world is a tapestry of many colors, and the just leader would seek to celebrate this, not seek to unravel it. And if you've watched Laser Z's Assassin's Creed Revelations retrospective video, right, Picol?
Yeah.
But like, do you remember what he said about that? Like he said, if you waste time unraveling the world, then you lose out on what makes life worth living, and that's what is kind of the case in, or not kind of the case. That is the case you're getting in the Justice Lords universe, where they seek to they spend so much time trying to unravel like the world of, and just making it like a barren wasteland and just lacking any color, that there's no point in living in their world.
This is like the whole point of like the third semester of Persona 5 Royal, where like there's like this guy who's like he like takes over the world because like he like has the ability to like change everyone's mental state, or like it's kind of hard to explain if you don't understand the lore of Persona.
Oh, keep going, keep going.
Like he can change the mental state of like everyone in the world, so he makes it so that like everyone is like always happy and always living their perfect life, and like nothing ever goes wrong. But like that life is so boring because everything just goes right all the time. But if everything just went right all the time, you would never like learn and grow as a person.
Yeah, and this whole concept has been touched upon in like one Twilight Zone episode, or like in some other series. But like it's not I mean, like the whole idea of living, like people don't understand the meaning of freedom, and like people don't understand like color. People don't understand like the world being a tapestry of all these other things, and like this is why Batman doesn't really understand the criminals he's fighting or how people are made, and he says he's basically working within the framework of a society that is unfortunately tailored towards creating criminals, and sadly that is the nature of the real world that we live in, Bacall. Like school is like a ripoff. Like there's always a lot of biases involved without people get into jobs and the like, and PhD programs are a fucking ripoff. That's what I'd say. And like and like there's just like it's so hard to live in this world because money is what makes the world go around, and you can't just say like, oh, like let's have everyone earn a living, like let's have everyone earn the same way, because there's no sense of competition, and also that will lead to inflation, because if everyone is earning like the same amount, then that means that dollar value has no value, of course. But that, again, like that's kind of the unfortunate consequence of like having the lower, middle, and rich class of like the financial status, because these divisions are well known. That's why we have this money crisis. That's why there's this whole situation where money makes the world go around, and that's why most of the time the things we learn in education don't serve any purpose, because then we have to waste time going through these very tedious processes, these convoluted processes of trying to get a job, or like trying to get into a PhD program, or trying to appeal to these employers that have very biased expectations. And like you're wasting time going through this very convoluted process of trying to get a high-paying job when criminals are out there taking the easy way out, and they're stealing cars, or they're running things to the black market, or they're collecting things from other countries and smuggling them into the country. Like they're favoring all these avenues that are easy to get. And the thing is that people always favor the paths that give them the greatest rewards with the least amount of effort. But because of the amount of effort that you have to go through to get a decent life as being a good person, this and that, it leads you to feel very disenfranchised. And that's why there's a lot of poor people on the street. That's why there's a lot of homeless people on the street. And relating this to the whole idea of Assassin's Creed, the Assassins, they try to not favor that whole model that the Templars favor, and like the Assassins, they try to make even the most disenfranchised of people feel like there's a reason to live in this world, and they aren't motivated by money. They're motivated by expression, by humanity and the like. And humanity is such a core element to the Assassin's philosophy that they've just lost in the later games. But like that's just that, like when you hear that all this talk about like soldiers fighting for their country and the like, and they're fighting for the good world, this and that, and you look at the state of our society today and how flawed it is, like, and it's not just down to like broken designs and the like, it's a problem within the functional framework that they set up for our society. Is this really the world we're fighting for? Like, do you understand what I'm saying, Bacall?
Like there's no like reason for like all this fighting and stuff that's happening, and it's just erasing lives for no reason, just because people want money or because they're angry at someone else or they just want to kill because they think it's fun.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to touch upon as well. Because of how much money makes the world go around, it's unfortunately shaped our priorities. We don't value morality. We don't value doing the good things in life. We don't value humanity as a whole. We value whatever makes us profit. That's why there's a lot of crime on the streets these days. That's why you hear a lot about insurrectionists. That's why like the things that politicians do is such a huge matter in society because it's what allows us to get more money. And that's why people like Donald Trump are hired into power because Donald Trump was delivering opportunities for people to earn money, but at the same time he was delivering problems with racism and with deporting people and creating a wall. And I think he also I don't know if Donald Trump has anything against gay people or the like, but I feel like
He
we
definitely does.
yeah, he definitely does, but it's just we favored the whole model of hiring someone that would benefit us financially but not benefit us morally. And the thing is that we get someone like Joe Biden, and Joe Biden, I voted for Joe Biden in the election. I'm not going to hold any secrets regarding that. After Donald Trump was suspended from power, but like Joe Biden to me just feels like a more morally sound individual. But then you hear all this stuff about him making very poor decisions and not benefiting us financially.
It's the choice between the lesser of two evils rather than a choice between a morally good person or like a morally evil person.
Yeah, and it's it's
You're
it's it's
choosing
the same
between
case.
two
Yeah,
evils, and there's like it feels like nothing matters because there's no choice.
yeah, and you know something else? Ezio makes a quote like that. You know how at the end of Ahmed's boss fight, and like Salim actually greets Ezio, and Ezio comes close to stabbing Salim, and Sophia stops him from doing it. Well, Ezio makes the quote of, "When does one fight end and another begin?" And that's when Ezio comes to the realization that the fighting never ends. Like he took down Ahmed to put Salim into power, and Salim is just as bad as Ahmed. You know? That's what Laser Z pointed out in his Assassin's Creed Revelations retrospective video, and it's just
And like Ezio is so old at this point that he has to leave the fighting to someone else because he can't do it anymore.
yeah, and that's just when you're considering that, and when you're considering how much our society is shit, and how much like being a good person in our society has no value at all. We don't value that at all. We instead have to go through the whole process of just like twiddling our thumbs trying to get a job, or like meeting the biased expectations of our employers, or just getting a very meager salary, when these people when these criminals and the like are favoring black market routes, they're favoring drug trading, they're favoring sex trafficking, they're favoring all these other things. And then you hear all these other good people like Mr. Beast or like Markiplier, for instance, that are making tons of money for just making YouTube content. And I guess in some ways I can appreciate that, because they're touching upon the creative side of people. Like that people, like, they're getting a lot of money because people appreciate the creative side and the freedom that's provided to them.
And like they're actually like doing all this work and stuff to make these videos. And like I've always heard people say like, "Oh, doing YouTube and Twitch is not a real career," but it literally is because people are making like millions of dollars from doing it.
Yeah, and they're doing it in a way that makes people feel like there's a reason to still live in this world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's appealing to the creative side of people. That's appealing to the humanity side of individual, albeit like both the good and bad sides of humanity. Because I'm sure there are YouTubers out there that make money doing things like showing like sex videos or all these other gross videos and the like. But I'm not counting that individual. But then when you have people showing their creative freedoms and they're talking about these things like there's a reason why I go on these like enlightenment videos when I'm talking about the kind of tangents I'm discussing, when I'm talking about Batman's moral code, and I'm talking about the nuances involved with that, or like when I'm talking about his one-dimensional perspective on this crusade, because on this crusade against crime, because that's me expressing my creativity. That's me feeling like there's a reason to still continue living in this world, because debating all this and just like bringing new questions to light, just like bringing more color into the mix, into the society that we live in. If there's it feels like there's purpose and value behind that, you know? And even though I'm not even making a living out of it. I mean, then again, I could be doing so, because I'm doing all that when I'm doing my casual job at Johns Hopkins and the like. But it's just we completely lost the plot with what we value in today's society. And instead, we
And
favor
like
the most convoluted routes ever, and we make it so hard for the good person to live in this world, and so it's easy for us to favor the bad aspect.
I remember when I was trying to get a job, I graduated college in May, and it took me until August to get a job because it took forever for me to find a job. Because like everyone was like my parents were like, everyone is saying they're hiring. Why can't you get a job? It's like I'm literally trying, but no one is hiring me just because they always
Hmm.
either ghost and ignore me or they just say no because like they don't think I'm good enough, even though they're literally saying that they're hiring and need people.
Yeah, and then like when you consider all the stresses you've gone through in elementary, middle, and high school, and like all the expectations your parents set upon you, or like all the things that they said, oh, if you know this, then you'll be able to succeed in life. But then they don't bother highlighting the nature of job seeking and the like. Was it all worth it in the end?
Yeah, like my parents literally kept telling me that like I should be able to get a job really quickly just because like they got a job really quickly when they were looking for jobs, and they think that I should be able to just walk into a place and ask for a job and then walk out being hired, and that's not how it works anymore.
Yeah, but and not only that, but like I think with my parents, I don't think my parents really understand like the point I'm trying to address right here because they favor their own views and like they represent the older generation. When I mean I think that society still worked the same way back then, but like it's just like like all the things that they said to me in elementary, middle, and high school, it doesn't feel like it was worth anything in the end. Like, and the things I learned in those days just felt like they didn't contribute to anything. And then like, and like they like when you hear all these like school adverts of like doing the right thing, always going to school, this and that. When I feel like I've learned more outside of school than in school. It's
Yeah,
just
that's why I feel like it's pointless to say like, oh, like don't do drugs because that doesn't help anything. Like if people really want to like stay away from drugs, we should give them the choice to try drugs safely if they want to do it, but instead of just saying, "Oh, don't do drugs whatever you do."
well, that's not even how I view that whole situation of drug abuse and the like. But a lot of people seek drugs to find that like that sense of enlightenment or like find some kind of peace because the way they're living right now is they feel like they're worthless and the like, and it's just drugs put them into that different realm where they feel like they have this sense of levity or this little bit of peace in them. But that's a terrible way to handle that situation. That's not building up your ability to live in society. That's building up like self-destructive tendencies and the like. That's why like when I talk about this whole idea of embracing stupid runs like kill all runs or knife only runs, it's literally the equivalent of being a drug addict seeking a fix, and you're engaging in self-destructive behaviors and the like. And it's just nothing. And it's just that's just the nature of our society. We value all the wrong things. And I was reading an article. Like, do you know the whole situation with scalpers, Picol?
Not really.
Well, scalpers are the people who've been using bots and the like to buy up huge PS5s and Xbox Ones in bulk, right? Well, I read an article from a guy who engages in this very scummy practice, but he said that he was earning $61,000 a month, and that he was also helping young people, like people who subscribe to his content, like set up businesses that allow them to earn a lot of money. And I bet the guy didn't even go to college and the like, because I've heard about this kind of thing of people not even going to college, and they're still making more money than any of us in the future. But like, and it's because they're engaging in these kind of practices, like with these kind of scalping practices and all these other practices, because it helps benefit them financially. And like, do
Yeah,
they care about what
I
do
feel
they?
like that's why people are like buying into all this NFT stuff, which are basically just like scams, because it's literally just like you make a picture and but you like sell it
Hmm.
to someone and then like but like you also like put it online publicly so people can just steal it, but you sell it to make money, but then those people can also just sell it, but then you get the profit from it. I don't know. NFTs are confusing. I don't fully understand.
Yeah, it's just like going back to like what my parents said. Like when they're currently right now, I'm still looking for PhD programs, and they said like if I don't get into a PhD program, I could just go into an applied statistics program. But it's like I don't care as much about that. Like it doesn't feel like it's my first priority to really consider the education like or anything like that because I'm just going to be doing more work and the like. And like that's just the thing though. Like even when we think we're done with school, we're still doing school in our adult lives. We're
Yeah,
still like we're
and
still
like
doing all these other tedious
I
things.
remember like I didn't even want to go to college in the first place, but my parents still had me go anyway because they
Well, I
thought
mean,
it
you
was
should go to college though, because like you
yeah,
should get a lot more opportunities from people to
yeah,
like that will accept you into jobs and the like. Because like I'm enjoying my jobs right now, but it's still not paying enough. Because
yeah. But like
that's the life
even
of a
with
good person, right?
college, even after going to college, I still feel like I barely learned anything because like college barely taught me anything useful. Because like even though I like did like video editing like a major and stuff like that, they barely taught me anything. And just like they had one video editing class, but they didn't even teach us in that class how to do video editing. They just taught us the history of video editing. It's like, why would I ever need that knowledge?
Yeah, but I mean, in my case, I feel like I learned a lot from college. I mean, when it came to like psychology and the like. But I mean, I just all I care about right now, like, I mean, just getting the education was one thing. Just understanding like the tests and the quizzes and the answers to like multiple choice, for instance, was a separate thing entirely. And that's why I valued what I got in psychology. But you know, I'm still applying that knowledge today. But it's just like it doesn't really get much anywhere because then I'm wasting time doing all these other menial tasks or my jobs when I all I want to do is just live out my life perfectly. Is just to live out like a really like well established life and just not try to like and not try to embrace all these really stupid pods or stimuli that people try to put upon themselves like
Just
oh
like live your life the way
appearances
you
are
want to live it.
yeah just live the way I want to live it. But it's just it's hard for people to do that because of the way we've set up our society and it's just so convoluted in that
People
way.
people feel like they're forced to like follow this one singular path through life because society forces all like these different like expectations upon everyone, and it's like just it's so dumb.
And for all I know, like we probably set it up that way because of the number of people on the planet. For all we know, like there are
Thanos
times.
is right.
Yeah, Thanos was right, and I've even thought about that. Maybe Thanos was right to destroy half the universe because we saw the events of what happened in Avengers Endgame, where there's like no crime anymore, and Thanos Thanos said that Gamora's planet was recovering well. But that's because he destroyed half the planet. But that's just another easy way out. And it's just when we see like in What If Episode 2 that T'Challa showed Thanos a different path without killing anyone, and like the world was still working the way and the world just got better that way, or like the entire universe got better that way. That was really really interesting for T'Challa to say that, and it's just right now I just feel like we set up we it's hard for people to get jobs. It's hard for people to earn a living in life because of just the amount of like people living in our world today, and it's just I almost want to favor Thanos' perspective, but at the same time, I know it's wrong. But at the same time, with our priorities in life, we don't favor morality or humanity. We favor more so money, and that's just the thing that shapes us, and that's why families are torn apart. That's why we get into all these fights with our families. That's why it's just, like the expectations that your parents set upon you, and the like. It's like it doesn't really matter anymore. And it's like all that struggle wasn't worth it.
It's like the whole nature versus nurture thing. Like people always think like, oh, like you learn so much from your parents, which like you do, I guess, but like I feel like most of the things you learn in life are like developed through like your life experiences instead of what your parents teach you.
Yeah, a bit, and it's just, relating this to Assassin's Creed. I feel like the assassins, like they develop this ideology perfectly to help the disenfranchised, to really make life worth living, and to really make all those struggles that you go through feel like it's worth it. But then the Templars, they shove all that aside, and then they just put everyone in their places, and they just shove everyone into a corner, this and that, and they're just like roll with it. That's kind of like the society that we live in today. I would say they favor the Templar ideology. I would say,
It's Assassin's Creed Rogue.
yeah, and that's just part of the nuance to the assassin ideology that we that's not explored upon anymore after AC Revelations. AC Revelations was the last game to really do that. Or like AC4 did as well, but that's just the unfortunate reality
Honestly, yeah,
of this.
AC3 kind of like touch upon that because like I always remember the conversation with Connor and Haytham on the roof.
Yeah, that one. Hatham was
Like
great for
Haytham
that.
basically blamed Connor for the like American Revolution starting because Haytham thought that the Templars would stop it.
Yeah, but well, there's a lot more we need to discuss about this tangent when we get the chance. But right now we have a couple of seconds left, so I guess we'll conclude the commentary here. But we just have one final sequence left with Al Mualim, so stay tuned for that final video, guys.
I think that video is only gonna be like 18 minutes because it's literally just the Mossy off section with Willem and then the ending.
And then AC2 Brotherhood and Revelations, but
Yeah.
that's how it's going to be. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.
Hell yeah, boys.